Hello, and welcome back to the review board. Today we are going to be taking a look at The Man from U.N.C.L.E., a 2015 action comedy. A rather good spy movie about the comedic elements of pitting two unlikely allies, spies, and forcing them to work together and make it work. Yeah, The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Obviously, this is a very old story that's been told quite a few times. This 2015 version is the most recent one as far as my knowledge goes. I don't think they've done anything with this kind of IP since then. And it is about balancing those elements of the kind of very dramatic, gritty, real kind of Cold War spy elements with the humor of forcing unlikely allies to work together. Let's take a look. So, the casting here. A bit of a mix. Henry Cavill is obviously a bit more of a household name now. I think certainly he's somebody that's very fresh in a lot of people's minds. With some of his other roles, I think this was kind of before he'd really achieved all of that. And certainly some of the other names are a little bit less well known, but this cast is really good in my mind. Armie Hammer here, I certainly think he did an excellent job. And even Alicia Vikander, she was a bit of a standout here. You know, these two did a pretty good job of being a real on-screen presence, and that kind of them jostling to try and one-up each other is a real thing that you feel throughout the movie. And having her slap bang in the middle, I think if you don't have your own presence, you're going to get lost in that. And she does an excellent job of never letting them be too much for her. And that is exactly what the role called for. And she masters that balance kind of perfectly here. So that makes the cast a bit of a standout, really. I think everybody suits their roles kind of perfectly. Even some of the bad guys really manage to fit that role without being too much for it. And that can be tricky because certainly when you're more of a spy movie rather than an action movie, you want to have presence, but you don't want to be a villain per se, as you might see in some of the action movies, you know. So that was really well done and a really nice balance. So the main question really is, could they have been replaced? And I think really with a lot of the group dynamics that's so perfectly balanced off each other, I think anybody that you would have replaced them with would have really distorted that kind of triangle, that chemistry that balanced each of the other parts around one another. And not just within the core trio, but within the bad guys, within the good guys, within the background characters as well, because it's a lot of people that if there hadn't have balanced it out, you wouldn't have been as connected with it. So I think this really is deserving of a 5, hands down. Probably, I would say, one of the best cast movies that we have looked at of this recent bunch here. you know, we've got 2 5s here for casting, and I would say this stands probably above both of them. Probably the best casting so far. Let's lead that into production a bit more then. So there isn't anything that stands out in my mind, and that's both good and bad. With this kind of movie, you don't want things to stand out. You want everything to seamlessly roll into each other. Because although it doesn't betray itself in that way, it is a period movie. And getting across all those little elements that display the period without telling you it's the period is such an important detail that just helps immerse you in the movie and mean that you never lose focus. It just keeps you engaged with everything that's going on, and you just really feel like you're there. Now, this comes with a few minor things that there's nothing really that is anything new or anything that stands out, but it's about the mastery of what is there rather than there being something else. So I don't think we can give it top marks here, but it is a question of how good, because within the film that it is, it not having anything stand out is okay. However, you always want to be trying to push something forward to do something that hasn't been done before. Otherwise, you are just mastering what's already there. Now, we need to respect the fact that they did do that exceptionally well. So there's, you know, all those moments where they're setting the scene, all those little details within the specific scenes of the car chase, the specific scenes of the island when they're inside the buildings, you know, even the specific scenes of when they had the guy strapped to the chair, you know, seeing how the chair was made, the type of straps that they were, you know, these are all things that you could easily overlook and not even think about. And yet, you know, if you actually thought about it, it's like, those things don't exist anymore. They only existed back in the 50s. So it is strong with no new features rather than no exceptional features, because it's exceptional in what it has achieved, but it is not broken out the mold in any way. And so with that, we are looking at a 9. We're not going to reach that top spot because there's nothing that's not been done, but it was just a joy to watch from the production elements, and it just keeps you flowing throughout the movie very, very well. Into the script. Now, we're going to be a little bit critical of the script here because, like I say, this is a well-known story. Obviously, there are elements that are changed. There are little bits and pieces that are adapted, and that needs to be the case because you can't always retell the same old story. But whenever we've got something like this it's well known, you have to dive into the details of what they've done with what they had. I think they do a really good job of using the pacing of the script and the action to hide the surprises that you know are coming. I think there's no point in time in the movie, due to the nature of it being a spy movie and due to the nature of it being, these kind of unlikely allies, that you're not expecting something to always be kind of happening or around the next corner. But they do a very good job of the delivery of what is happening to when that punch comes, you're not necessarily, it's like, oh, that's how it happens. That's what's gonna go on. And they do that in a few different ways. They do that in both with the character development. There is a wonderful scene where they keep talking about the cover, that they are pretending to be the person that they're pretending to be, and they're arguing, well, he wouldn't do this, well, he would do this, where he wouldn't do that. And mixing that in of what they're saying, that how he needs to be, the person that he needs to be, with the person that is underneath of, okay, I'm in this difficult situation and I have to pretend to be a certain way, but really I want to just turn around and smack these guys because they mean nothing to me. I'm a spy. I could handle this in a moment, and the disrespect that they're giving me boils my blood. And it's a wonderful, wonderful scene. And that is, we're going to come on to the effects of that and the acting of the betraying of those levels, but having the understanding of the character portraying this is the script part, and that's really nice. Really, really nice. I think it's done a very good job of that delivery of those parts to keep you kind of engaged with what's going to happen and that there's something new, while still kind of masterfully telling a story that's kind of already been told. And so it's not going to be a top spot because they've not really created anything new, but they have done an excellent job with what they've got. I think in this case we are looking at an 18 rather than a 19 or 20. Just because I think there's nothing there that you don't expect. It's just the greatness of how they've delivered what is there and what you are expecting. So now we are going to get into the detail of that delivery. And this is where I say that the real balance comes in, because these three actors, that is the main trio here, is where all the kind of chemistry is. And all these other actors support them nicely. They're given enough room, they're given enough depth, and they give the main actors what they need to be put in these positions. I think the levels that these actors give shows how much more there are to the characters. If there's any one that they don't dive into deep enough, it is definitely Napoleon Solo, Henry Cavill, and I think that is on purpose. And in this case, I kind of agree with it. They don't show as much of his background, they don't go as much into his story. And I think because his role within the group of the kind of charismatic one who's always trying to charm the situation is what allows the other characters to have a bit more depth to them. And so he's facilitating that. It does cry out a little bit more for maybe another movie, and I was always very sad that they didn't follow it up with another movie. Because it's like they spend so much time establishing these characters, you want to see where they evolve to, because it's more establishment than evolution. And you can do it in both ways, because establishment is its own evolution, because it is the establishment of the evolution of how you got to where you are, rather than the evolution of where you are going. It's the retrospective, and that's fine. But because you've done it as establishment rather than as evolution, you're left at the end of the movie thinking to yourself, yeah, I want more. I want to know where they go. I want to know the troubles that they keep having to deal with, or the things that they do, knowing that they have to keep dealing with each other, what it is they're going to do to deal with that and to get on with each other. I guess the one issue with something like that is you've then got to write a story that meets up to the same standard of what they've already written, and that's always tricky in a sequel. But that's a different question altogether. Yeah, I mean, there's several characters, Hugh Grant, Elizabeth Debicki. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that same surname correctly, but they really kind of feed into them really nicely as well. The kind of, they hate each other, but they have to play nice at the same time is is so well done. You never know whether they're going to slap each other or whether they're going to kiss each other. And that's, that's a perfect relationship you want in those things. And same with, like, you've got that same kind of thing on the other end here between Alicia and Armenia. The way they look at each other, like, is there something here? Am I gonna say anything? Is something gonna happen? I want to, but the situation is always holding me back, and it feels very real. Everything kind of really relates back to how you feel real people are. And so that's really, really well balanced out. I think because the characters are so kind of intertwined with each other, the range is in what the different people bring to the table. The differentiation between Solo and Ilia are such different characters. And again with Gabby as well. Gabby often plays this kind of balanced role between, God, you guys are idiots, and why am I having to do this? And yet, come on, guys, you've got a fucking job to do here. It's everybody is bringing something to the table, and then still managing to give the depth on top of that of the past, why these people are in these places, the things that has led them to there, and what's driving them to try and do things. Gives you that range and naturally that balance within the movie as well, so that it's not all one side. The thing that I enjoyed the most from the acting here is that it's not all drama. There is a lovely moment where both of them are working together and they are being chased because they've been caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, and they're trying to get out of there, and they've just realized Solo, because of what happened, he's realized he's not really in the conflict anymore, and he just kind of sits there and is like, okay, I'm just going to enjoy this moment then. While Ilya is still very much battling with trying to get out of the mess. And it's that natural contrast between the two of them that just keeps you very much entertained. So let's have a look at what that actually means on the board, where that puts them. I think we are looking extremely, extremely high here. High 60s. The only thing that makes me kind of want to take away from a few of the real top spots is because a few of those supporting casts haven't quite delivered everything that they should have. And that's, you know, is that them not being given enough in the script? Is that because it's hard to say. I think it's just because of the presence so much of them, it kind of pulls a little bit away from them. So I think we are looking at 62 here. It's got all the pieces, but really, is that too much? Maybe it should be 63. Yeah, because they really do a very good job of giving me all of the pieces. Yeah, I think 63 is fair. 2 points for the background characters that just needed a touch more. I think is right. That feels right to me. All right, let's start to have a look at what that means, where it actually ends up on the scale. So that is, wow, a 95. Whew. Is that our highest film to date? Yes, it is. And that means it is literally fallen 1 point short of our top category. Truly amazing. While that feels a little bit harsh to me, I think the more I look at it, I think that's right. You know, the casting was there, the acting was there, but the script is lacking a little bit of innovation to really be an amazing film. It's a good, exceptional film, but it is not quite an amazing film. And so I think that is a right balance of where it lands on the marking. Even the production, if there had just been a bit more in the production to innovate, to be a little bit different, that would be the edge that it needs to be an amazing film. And it is an exceptional film, a very enjoyable watch that's so easy. You know, it's just an easy film to watch. And I think that ease of it just makes it really, really rewatchable. You know, I feel like you could sit down and watch this film almost any time and just enjoy it, even having seen it a couple of times, you know. That's a sign of a really well-crafted film. And I think, you know, maybe we will even mark that with something to show that we've got a little bit of an extra factor there, how rewatchable it is. So, another exceptional film, something that's a cut above everything else that we've had so far. Certainly a movie that I recommend you go out and watch if you haven't seen it already. And if you have seen it already, rewatch it and tell me what you think, whether you feel the same way about it. Do subscribe so that you can see what movie I review next, and leave me a comment as to what movie you think I should review. Thank you for staying to the end, and I will see you on the next one. Bye now.